Johann Zietsmann is the president and CEO of the Adrienne Arsht Center in Miami, and he has a fantastic journey that he's sharing with me today. We're going to speak about servant leadership. We're going to speak about Ubuntu. We're going to speak about the arts, and we even going to sing a little bit. Enjoy this episode with Johann Zietsmann. Hello, and welcome to a new episode of the Business of Meeting podcast. Today, I am absolutely grateful and delighted to speak with Johann Zietsmann. Johann is the president and CEO of the Adrienne Arsht Center in Miami. He has a fantastic journey, a journey that you will see goes with a lot of humanity, business, nonprofit, arts, and changing the mind and the heart of people to art. Johann, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me today.
Oh, of course, Eric. I'm delighted to be here and talk about the things that I care a lot about.
Absolutely. I had the opportunity to meet you and listen to you thanks to our good friend, Brewster Kale, and this amazing group, the Strategic Forum, that he co-founded in Miami. And I must say your journey is absolutely unique. I was very touched by it, very inspired by it, and I'm glad you accept to take the time to speak with me today. So for the people listening, what is your journey? And it all started in South Africa, right?
Yes, I did. I was born in South Africa, and I hesitate to say now, but I was born in the 50s. That is 1950s. So a while ago. But the important thing about that date is that it was squarely under apartheid. And so my whole upbringing was in apartheid South Africa, and I grew up like every other white kid in South Africa, thinking our lives are normal, and that our environment and our politics were just normal to us. We had no idea about anything until we grew up, and some of us realized, over time that apartheid was terrible and wrong, and tried to do something about it. And so, I grew up like that, and I went to the military. Every white male and over 18 person had to go to the military. Mm-hmm. And of course, the military's job at that time was just one job, and which is basically to keep the so-called terrorists out of South Africa. And the terrorists were basically defined as Black people organizing against apartheid and wanting to come into the country from the north. During that time, the African National Congress, which was the political organization for Black people, was headed by Nelson Mandela, who was at the time in prison at Robben Island. Many of their leading members and many of their military members were banned from the country. And so they were living in other parts of the world, many of them in other parts of Africa, and organizing resistance. And so obviously that was why the South African military, when I was in there in the 70s, was preoccupied with keeping them away from South Africa. So I spent many years up on the northern border between Namibia and Angola with white South African soldiers in guerrilla warfare, basically. At the same time, at the time, I was studying architecture and playing French horn in the local symphony orchestra for pocket money. So really strange life. For 9-10 months, that's what you are an architecture student with your hair hanging on your shoulders and a Frisbee under your arm and bell-bottom jeans and playing your French horn at night. And then in December and January for 2.5 months or so over the summer break, you have to go to the military and go to the front line, where your hair is cut, you put a uniform on, you get a gun, and you become that thing again. So clearly a difficult journey for anybody who, like me at that time, were beginning to question the whole thing of apartheid and beginning to work against it. So, that's kind of where it started. But in short order, after I graduated, me and my current wife got my one and only wife, I should say. Got
married. When you say current, okay.
Current is true. my first wife, which is still my wife, we got married and went to Ithaca, New York, where I did a master's degree in music. And after that, we wanted to go back to South Africa. We had opportunities to stay, but we decided we wanted to be a part of the democratic struggle. And we did. We went back, and I worked for 20 odd years in arts management in a variety of places. My very first job was a principal of a music school in Cape Town that I opened and had to start for the Department of Education. And it's still there. It's still running in Cape Town. And many other things. I managed orchestras, I managed opera company, music theater company, I managed performing arts centers, and I managed a community center in a Black rural village called Taung, which was unbelievably wonderful as an experience in Bophuthatswana. So a whole variety of experiences before. In 2002, I was recruited to a job based in New York, and we emigrated with my family at that time, 2 kids. And we immigrated. And so I've worked in New York for 6 years. I worked in Arizona for 3 years. I worked in Canada for 9 years. And now I'm in Miami for the last 3.5 years. So, very shortly, that's the journey.
Amazing. And when you're talking about your journey, I remember very clearly the day of the referendum that was going to stop apartheid. And I was in the office of ISEC, the International Association of Student in Economic and Management. And I was present in Belgium, but I was in the international office. We had people from South Africa. And ISEC already there for years, even under apartheid, was bringing students, different colors, no discrimination at all. I remember the day we were receiving faxes at that time. And then some years later, I visited Robben Island with my wife off the coast of Cape Town. Very moving experience with a former inmate. But you're bringing the arts and you talk about music. Isn't that the universal language that brings everyone together? And if we talk about South Africa, the late Johnny Clegg, for which I'm always been a big fan, would do that, would bring people from all over the world under his music.
It truly, the arts, music, yes, too, but the arts in general are really, truly universal. We all, doesn't matter who we are, we laugh when we're happy, we cry when we're unhappy, we move, or if not dance, when we hear music. We sing in a variety of ways, some of us good, some of us bad, but we do as a human species. Singing lullabies or singing in the shower is a universal thing, and we all understand what that means. Whether we sing in the same way and the same words doesn't matter. And when you get a Chinese dancer on a stage or a ballet dancer, or when you hear Johnny Clegg, even if that's not your culture, it moves you because it's universal. It talks to your soul, and somehow we understand when we're listening to sad music or happy music. We just know as a human species. And so, and it's that universality of the arts that literally brought me to the profession that I decided to pursue. In the Army, me and a couple of buddies went to a local shebeen, which is a black pub in the local townships, despite apartheid, despite the fact that we were not supposed to be there. We went there because, we were arrogant, clueless, bulletproof. And we went to this Saturday night festival that the Black people in Saturday evening in that culture did. They entertained each other with song and dance and storytelling in their local Black pubs or shebeens. And we went to one of those. And we were the only 3 white guys there, of course. We were not supposed to be there, but we were there because, as I said, we were arrogant. And we were enjoying ourselves. And somewhere in the middle of the night, 2 Black guys came up, and they did let's just say a skit, a dramatic performance of the life of 2 Black people in Robben Islands in a prison cell. And they were basically talking about their dreams, what would happen when they get released. They want to have a steak, they want to have a beer, they want to meet their girlfriend again, they want to hug their kids, all the things that you and I would do. And again, universal human desires and dreams and aspirations that they were articulating in this little story. I did not know at the time because I was clueless, but at the time I didn't know this was Athol Fugard's The Island, which is a play that, became very, very successful and went to London and New York and everywhere. And I did not know that these two actors that were playing the parts were two incredibly famous Black actors. I have become very friendly with one of them, John Carney, over the years. He's still a friend of mine. I didn't know all that. I just saw this happiness, this human expression in a place where I thought and was expecting as a white South African in a Black room that there would be antagonism towards me, that there would be hatred, that there would be some lack of love expressed in some way, shape, or form. And yet all I experienced that whole evening was exactly what I would experience in a group with white people in the room. It was just universally human. And it struck me at that time, and it sounds really silly to say it now, but I was 19 years old or something. It struck me at that time, really for the first time, that these people who for the whole of earlier part of my life were just simply irrelevant, simply invisible. They are human just like me. They have the same emotions like I have, the same dreams. And I realized that I came to that realization because of something that was conveyed to me through the medium of the arts. If somebody got up that evening and made a speech about these things, I wouldn't have listened. I wouldn't have been moved. It wasn't a speech. It was just simply a piece of theater that touched me in a way that I know theater touches people all the time. And I decided there and then I wanted to be part of that doing that for the rest of my life, changing communities' hearts and minds for the better through the arts. And that's how I ended up in this profession.
I'm listening to you. I just speechless and appreciate so much what you're saying. And it made me think of at the end of the apartheid, when Nelson Mandela, when Madiba became president. I don't know which book I read that the head of the presidential guard, the first day that he's arriving, comes and gives his resignation. And Nelson Mandela looked at him and said, "What are you doing?" He said, "Well, you're now in charge, so I'm giving you my resignation." And what Mandela said, "Well, you were protecting the former president. I think you're good enough to protect me." And he really brought everybody together, which is, you see the impact. And unfortunately, we have other examples which are not as positive, but you see the impact of what one person can do in the right position and the right mindset.
It's the one thing I will say about Madiba. I've met him 3 times, and it's, he is as wonderful as everybody. He's more wonderful than everybody says he is. The one thing I will say to him, he's one of those rare people that started playing a political role, but he's a true leader. Sadly, most politicians are followers. They have to. They go where the votes say they should go, or they go where their constituents tell them to go. But he is one of those leaders that can go against what his constituents are telling him because he knows it's the right thing to do. And he did that in many, many ways. I mean, you must have seen the movie Invictus of the Rugby World Cup.
Yes. I haven't seen the movie. I know very well the story, yes.
Well, where he was wearing the South African Springbok jersey, which was the arch token of white supremacy, is the Springbok rugby team's jersey. I mean, a Black person wouldn't be seen dead in that jersey. And here's this guy standing up in front of a crowd of 55,000 at the World Cup, and he wears the jersey of the South African Springbok team. He was telling the whites that I'm one of you. I'm now accepting that part of your culture, but he was also telling the Blacks that we should be willing to do this. We should not see these people as the enemy anymore. And I'm going to oppose any person on the Black side who wants to retaliate to the whites because of apartheid, because there was obviously a strong dynamic to retaliate, to return the horrors of apartheid with more horrors. And I think that everybody would have understood why, But he was saying, no, we're not going to replace one form of oppression with another. We're not going to replace one violent, regime with another violent regime. And that's a leader. A leader can do that. That was not a popular thing to do, to wear that jersey. It's not a popular stance to say to people, calm down, calm down. We're not going to fight. We're not going to kill anybody. And he maintained the peace. And it was a miracle. It was a miraculous, peaceful transition, which was because of leadership.
Absolutely.
You talked about Robben Island. When I was running the music school in Cape Town, we were not supposed to teach Black kids, but we did anyway, because, you can't teach Black kids with white government money and all that. But over the weekends, we did. I went into the townships and did that, and visited Robben Island to go and do music demonstrations for the kids of the prison guards while Mandela was in the prison. So we went there and did little concerts for them 3 times when I was living there still. We did that, and it was a very special experience every time we were there, to think that we're at least bringing some joy to this really bizarre community.
Yeah. And you're talking about Invictus. What I know as well in Invictus is one of my most moving songs that I learned in ISEC with Shosholoza.
Yes.
Which is telling the story of the miners going from Zimbabweans, the movement of the train when they go to South Africa. And
Shosholoza is an incredible song, and most South Africans will know it, even if they only know the first 2 words or so.
Yeah.
And it's a little bit like the Negro spiritual Swing Low, Sweet Chariot, where the chariot is going to take me home. Very, very the American Negro spiritual, same word, same dynamic of this chariot, this train is going to take me home. It's going to take me away from this terrible place. It's going to take me over to a better place. Yeah, no, it's a great song.
Can you sing it?
Well, it is Shosholoza,
Shosholoza, yeah, hule zuntaba, simela, Wenura baleka.
That's it.
Hule zuntaba, simela, Zimbabwe.
It's a good song.
I love it. When I see all the alumni from ISEC and we'll get together, we always sing that together. Anyway, it's that brings a lot of souvenir and the music and the arts. They took you from New York, then to Arizona, then to Calgary, and now in Miami. And you are in what is arguably one of the, if not the most modern performing arts center in America. So can you tell us a little bit more about the history of the Adrienne Arsht Center in Miami?
Well, so it started like 25 years ago. Members in this community, and I know Parker Thompson, Woody Weiser, names that I don't even know, others, but those 2 played incredibly important leadership roles. Had this vision that this city was clearly becoming a world-class city, which I'm hearing, and we all knew in the 1980s was not necessarily true. And they wanted the city to have another culture and turn it around and have another image. And, about 20 or 25 years ago, they had this vision that it's time to build a performing arts center. But when we build one, and if we build one for Miami, it has to be the best. It has to be only the best. We want the best in this city. And so they, after getting to the point where the funding was lining up, they got Argentinian architect Cesar Pelli, who's really a famous architect, to design the building. His vision for the building was, he said, Miami, the one thing Miami doesn't have is mountains. And so he thought, I'm going to put 2 big mountains downtown.
Nice.
And you can see, if you look at the building, it looks like 2 big mountains. And he shaped them that way so that Miami would have 2 mountains. That was his vision. The design itself, is interesting, but the accommodation is superb. both the concert hall and the opera ballet house are two, world-class venues, each of about 2,500 seats, which is a big venue in the US. And there are smaller venues, smaller performance venues, and also other venues for education and work like that. And of course, backstage and so on. It's a facility which now is in its 16th operating season. So it's got a track record already of, bringing only the best of the best to Miami from all over the world to come and perform here. And more, we're beginning to also grow and help local talent to
emerge,
to get to that kind of standard and that stage. And so that's something we feel very passionate about. But right from its inception, it wasn't only a performing arts center that was going to be known for world-class performances, but it was also going to do a lot of education and community engagement work not as a sidebar issue, but as a mainstream issue for the arts. And so, basically that and the diversity of the city is what attracted me to Miami, is that strong community engagement work. I wanted to work in that and make it even stronger. And that's kind of my passion. And the diversity of this incredible city, this, I refer to it as organically messy city, but I mean it in a really positive way. What I mean is the city strikes me as a city that always wants tomorrow to be better than today, so it'll never be the same. It never stops changing. It never stops trying to improve, and that's a messy process. I've worked in cities where you got the feeling that they were kind of done, and they know who they are, and they're on rails, and they operate, and there's well-oiled machines. I don't think that Miami ever wants to be done. I think it will always want to find a way to be better tomorrow than today. And that's kind of an intoxicating energy, especially in the arts, to be there. So that diversity and that education and community engagement work, plus the high standards, the world class, appeal to the musician in me, the architect in me, and the educator in me, all rolled into one. It is one of the top 5 performing arts centers in terms of its budget and in terms of the size of the venues and the stage. The opera stage is the second largest in the country, only second to the Met. The backstage area. The backstage area is really well designed to accommodate just about any production you can imagine. And so we do a Broadway series, we do a classic music series, we do ballet series with the Miami City Ballet as our resident company. We do jazz, we do gospel, we do flamenco, we do a whole lot of different kinds of performing arts. And then we reach about 60 to 80,000 school kids every year.
Wow.
So, a very busy place. We do in a typical year, and we haven't had a typical year for a while because of COVID, but in a typical year, we do about 430 shows a year and attract about 400,000 people to the center. So it's a really busy place and it's just a superb place. And I can just encourage anybody who hasn't been there, go visit it, go check it out. You'll like what you see and you'll like what you experience, I'm sure.
Impressive. Are you talking about a large budget? And we know that the last 2 years have been a disaster for any venue, any performing arts center. How did you cope with that in terms of the budget, but also how did you cope with that with all your team to maintain the motivation and the vision of what the center should be for Miami and will be again as soon as things reopen?
That's a great question. I think the short question is we did not cope with it. It was just an impossible task, an impossible challenge for anybody. But our industry, Eric, the very nature, our DNA is to gather large crowds of people into a small, close proximity for 3 hours. And that's exactly what COVID said we cannot do anymore. And what happens on stage, actors and actresses and people dancing and singing are very close together, sometimes, picking each other up. And they can't do that with masks on. So again, on stage, we couldn't do what they were doing. And so I always say on the 20th of March, on the 13th of March, 2020, we lost our voice. We literally did. And we were among the very first types of businesses to close down and one of the last ones to open, and subject to very strict protocols all the way through. So we knew when this started, it was going to be a big challenge, but nobody at that time knew how long it was going to be. We all thought, maybe a few months.
Yeah.
Not even the CDC knew. Nobody knew how long this would be. And so we went through this incredibly difficult period of, let me just backtrack. When you program in a performing arts center like this, you build every year's programming very carefully and thoughtfully to balance it, to have all kinds of shows that lots of people will enjoy, a little bit of everything. And in order to get the best of each of those genres, takes 2 to 3 years ahead of time to get these famous artists on your schedule and to commit to a date, to agree with, on the financial side of things. So it takes about 2 to 3 years to build a season, a really good season like we do.
It's not like, oh, what are we going to do next Saturday? Oh, no. Why don't we get the
Exactly. And people would say to me, I drove past the Arsht last night and it was dark. Why don't you put something in there when it's dark? And it's a very reasonable question. But if you know how the planning operates, it's a long, difficult puzzle to put together. Because if you say, I want Yo-Yo Ma, you don't just get Yo-Yo Ma. You have to firstly find out, is he available? Is he interested? And then to find a date that makes sense for him because he's touring the world. So when finally all those things come together, you have a date. And that date then clashes with the ballet. Now you have to go and talk to the ballet and say, can you move maybe by a week? And they have to go and talk to the conductor because the conductor for the ballet was set for that week. And so it goes, and it goes around and around. And then finally, the programmers every year succeed in saying, okay, the season is locked in. We know where we are. And then to get to a point where you have to undo it all. It was very hard. It was not
you have to undo it like twice.
Well, when we started, we didn't know that. And so what we did is we said, let's look 6 months out.
Yeah.
Because anything between, earlier than 6 months, we won't be able to cancel it. It's too soon or too late or whatever. So let's cancel out 6 months. And then a month later, we said, we need to add another month. And then we agonized, should we really do that? Should we really cancel so-and-so because they've been waiting for 10 years to get here or whatever? And that's how we just kept going. We didn't say, let's cancel the whole year in one go because we know it's going to take a year for COVID. We did not know that. So we went month by month by month in increments. And finally, everything was shut down after about 4 or 5 months into COVID. We realized it was going to take at least a year. Then the process, every time you cancel a show, the conversation with the artist goes something like this. We can't do it on that date because we think COVID will be around. We don't know. So do you agree? Because you need their agreement. Otherwise, you have to pay them a fee. And they agreed. They said, sure, I can see that. And then we said, okay, do you want to reschedule 6 months later? And they said, sure, yeah, I can do. Then the whole process starts again for that new date. Or they say, you know what, let's just plan 2 years out because I've got other things next year. Or we cancel it altogether. So we rescheduled and canceled any one artist at least 3 times in the last 3 years. Wow. So a show that we're doing this November was going to happen 3 other times before. Because we tried and then we had to do it again. And then we tried, then we had to do it. And so you go.
I don't think that anybody would imagine the amount of work and stress and diplomacy and organization that it takes to do that.
Well, and emotional ups and downs. We as a team would meet by Zoom now. Okay, so yeah. I'm still barely new. I've only been here a year by the time this happened. And we're trying to lead this team of experts by Zoom, where all of us are trying to figure out how Zoom works through this heartbreaking moment of breaking down a season and putting certain staff members on furlough, which is another complication because we knew we couldn't run the full staff during this time. But you don't know if you're going to get them back in 3 months or 6 months or 7 months. And you don't just want to fire people. I mean, they are human beings with medical aid and families. And so you try to So we scaled down slowly till after a year we were at 50% of what we usually were. So you have this smaller team desperately planning and hoping that the machine will start running again soon. And that soon becomes 6 months, and then 9 months, and then a year. So it's a roller coaster. It's a time of incredible ambiguity. And I became ridiculously good at saying, I don't know. Mm-hmm. Because everybody wants an answer. Everybody wants, are we doing this? Are we doing that? And I would just say, I don't know. After a while, I started saying, we have supply chain problems. My crystal ball is on back order, and I'm just waiting. It's not coming.
I'm going to use this line.
Yeah, no, supply chain. And it still hasn't arrived. I'm sorry. It's still... So, it's all of that with a small team of people going through the stress of having lost colleagues that they love and worked with and trusted. And then, COVID pretends that it's clearing. We begin to plan things again. And then Omicron comes. And then you cancel again, so... But I have to say, throughout that time, one of the questions we asked ourselves right in the beginning, literally April 20, we said, whatever happens during this next time, however long it's going to be, how would we like our community to remember us when they think back on our role during this time?
Great leadership.
Do they want to say that we were just missing, and we understand, they shuttered down, they waited, they're a theater, they can't do shows? Or do we want them to say, despite all of that, we were part of their community, we were part of their lives, we made their lives better in whichever way we could? So we immediately launched many, many online programs. We immediately also launched Arsht on the Road, which is a little pop-up show that would pop up in a hotel or at a shopping center or at a hospital, far away from people, but where people were. And we would be masked, and 2 or 3 artists would go there and play something or sing or do a magic trick or do some tumbling or whatever. And we were just there for an hour, and then we disappeared, just to make people's lives just a little better with what we can do. And it also was a really important, the other priority for us was to do whatever we could to give local artists some money, because, the gig scene just dried up.
Totally.
The thousands of artists who were making a living in Miami through their art had no more opportunities. Yep. So we engaged them in a number of ways to create online content and to do Arsht on the road and other things. So throughout this difficult period of not being able to do what we really want to do, we did other things and stayed connected. And we opened probably one of the first centers to begin to open. And that's because of Florida and the governor, and who really,
absolutely.
He just said, get going, and you can't do this, you can't do that anymore. Yeah. And we just got going. We do outdoor events all the way since October last year. So
I remember the first year during the pandemic, actually watching the Phantom of the Opera in London with Andrew Lloyd Webber afterwards on stage, with everybody who had played Christina Rowell in the past. It was like a major gala, and I could see it with my family, obviously watching TV. Are you seeing something similar in the future where you can even have increased revenue by saying, okay, I have this happening, and I know there's copyrights as the artist and everything, but is there an opportunity looking at to basically have the live show, but also somehow monetizing that through online audience anywhere in the world?
Well, a number of those efforts have been done in a variety of different ways. I think one of the first examples in the US of something similar is the Met, that started broadcasting their opera in movie theaters. This is not live streaming, I know that, but the idea that a recording or a filmed version of what's happening on stage is available somewhere else outside the venue, and they monetized that, and it was quite successful for a while. I think the challenge now we have to realize, Eric, is that I think most people are streamed out. Most people,
totally.
I think you can send people the most amazing content and they don't even want to click it because well, firstly, we've seen too much of it now. We've all been on our laptops for too much. But secondly, if I want to watch a performance of the Mahler Fifth Symphony,
Yes.
I'm going to choose the one I want to watch.
Yes.
It's going to be either Claudio Abbado or it's going to be,
Joel Levy.
Whoever.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily.
He loves conducting. He's conducting Mahler by heart, by the way, which is totally phenomenal.
Who?
Right.
Sorry?
Joel Levy. He used to be the conductor of the Orchestra of Atlanta.
Yes.
Philharmonic of Atlanta. He went to Korea, I believe, and I'm not sure where now. But we had a debate because I'm not Mahler is not necessarily the one that I prefer, and he's obviously in love with the music of Mahler. But he's conducting Mahler without the partition, everything by heart. It's very impressive.
Yeah, Claudio Abbado does that too.
Yeah.
All nine of the symphonies. But the point is just, if I'm going to watch, I'll choose one that I really want to watch, and I might not choose the one you're streaming. Mm-hmm. So the market isn't as big as people seem to think it is.
That's a good point.
And also, will you pay for it if you can get so much for free? I can watch Abbado conduct the Berlin Philharmonic with the Mahler for free. Why would I watch, whatever orchestra you want to mention, Cleveland? Why would I watch them online and pay for it? I think the opportunity for online monetization is much more in brand new work, launching brand new work. In other words, you've never seen this before. The chance that you will see this ever live is very slim. So your only real opportunity is to see it online. So some company in Omaha decides to do a most amazing commission of ballet and rap. And it's only going to be on stage there, and it has the most famous ballet dancers, and Jay-Z is there. If you're a big fan and you want to see that desperately, you will pay to see it online.
Correct. Yeah.
But and many of once-off shows like that will not go on a tour, so it's not like you can wait for it. Broadway shows are touring, so. If you really want to see Six, you don't have to go to New York. You can just wait and it'll come here, or to a theater near you, in Broward or Tampa or somewhere. So my sense is, and I may be wrong, but I think online monetized is really an opportunity for new work, unique
Very
work,
good point.
one of a kind.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is why we watch things like, Sting on Times Square. You're not going to see that anywhere other than online, except if you're in New York City. That's worthwhile and interesting and unique and enjoyable online. But I think very few things are in that category.
Thank you. And a very good point. I could listen to you for hours, and you have such a fascinating life and journey, and when you speak about the arts, really, I truly love it. I would like to end this conversation today by something which I know is very dear to your art, to your heart, and that's my accent. It says, "I am because we are, Ubuntu."
Yeah, it is close to my art and heart. And there is art in the word heart.
Right.
So we're doing okay. Ubuntu is an African philosophy, and it comes from a phrase that in the original language is Umuntu, Ngubuntu, Ngabantu, which means in direct translation, a person, Ubuntu, a person is a person, Ngumuntu is a person through other people, Ngabantu. So a person is a person through other people. Or I am because we are. It's a philosophy that is around and has been around for a long time, but is lived in the African community, is lived in a very real way. And I heard Mandela speak about this, and others in South Africa. Bishop Desmond Tutu was a vocal advocate for this philosophy. And it really does talk about our human connectedness, the fact that we are kind of connected in this bundle of life, all of us. And and that we are interconnected and interdependent. And literally what it means is if you are unhappy, then I'm unhappy. Or put in a different way, if you're unhappy, I cannot be happy. Ubuntu means I feel your pain as much as you do, and I'm in it with you. But it also goes as far as, and I've experienced this physically when I was in Botswana, living there for 3 years. If I have an apple, then you have food. Even if the apple is all I have, I will share it with you because that's Ubuntu. I cannot eat it and you be hungry. It also goes further, and this was a big thing of Mandela during the time when he worked on democracy and tried to help people not to kill each other. If I'm dehumanized, then you are dehumanized. And so the fix of you being dehumanized is not just you, it's also me. Yeah. And so the fact that apartheid was undone was a fix for the pain that other people felt. So if you understand Ubuntu, it means retaliation doesn't belong there. I love it. It literally means if I have shelter, you have shelter. And if you understand it in that depth, you would also begin to apply it to modern management principles. You know, we in the Western world, we talk about things like, I want a win-win solution, or, at the end of a meeting or something. But win-win implies that it could also be win-lose or lose-win. Otherwise, you wouldn't use those words. In Ubuntu, it's not contemplated that somebody can lose. So the assumption is win-win, but better than that. Win-win implies it could be a loser as well. And if you start managing that way and understand that in any conflict in a workplace or a difficult challenge, if I understand that I am because you are, we're going to get to a solution that we both feel good about. And there isn't going to be a winner and a loser. And it's great for human relations at work. It's also really good for me to say to my staff, I am because you are. In other words, I'm only as good as you are, and you're only as good as I am. We are in this together. I'm not disconnected from you, and you're not disconnected from me. So, yeah, I can talk a lot about this, and I do workshops on this, and I do, workplace training on this, because it's such a strong and true way of looking at life.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Johann. It's been a pleasure. I look forward to seeing you soon live at the center for, I don't know which show, but thank you for everything you're doing for the center, for Adrienne Arsht Center in Miami. Thank you for everything you're doing for Miami, but also for South Florida. And thank you for taking the time to speak with me today.
Well, Eric, thank you. I really enjoyed talking to you, and I appreciate your interest very much.
Johann, thank you so much for taking the time. I can listen to you for hours. I love your journey, your philosophy, and Ubuntu. It's absolutely marvelous. And that's what the world needs today more than ever. Ladies and gentlemen, if you want to connect with me, please reach out on LinkedIn or join my Facebook group, www.evenbusinessformula.com/group. And if you enjoyed this episode, please share it with your network. Thank you.